I stood in the back of St. Timothy's Church watching my only son marry a woman I'd met exactly 4 times. The ceremony was beautiful. Tiffany wore ivory lace that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Brandon looked happy in his charcoal suit, the one I'd helped him pick out 3 weeks ago at Macy's during their sale. Nobody saved me a seat in the family section. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. I found a spot in the 7th row, between strangers who smiled politely and returned to their programs. From where I sat, I could see the back of Brandon's head and Tiffany's mother, Patricia, in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My daughter-in-law's family took up the entire left side of the church. My side held 12 people, most of them Brandon's co-workers who barely knew me. The reception was at the Toledo Botanical Gardens. $14,000 for the venue alone, Brandon had mentioned casually, like it was nothing. I'd brought a card with a check for $500 inside. It had taken me 2 months to save that amount from my teacher's pension. I gave it to Brandon during the cocktail hour, and Tiffany appeared at his elbow before he could even open it. "Oh, Donna, how thoughtful." She smiled with all her teeth. "We'll add it to the honeymoon fund. We're going to Bali for 3 weeks. Brandon's always wanted to see Indonesia. He'd never mentioned Indonesia to me, not once in 42 years. The dinner seating chart had my name at table 9, near the kitchen doors. I sat with Brandon's college roommate's parents and a couple who'd flown in from Tiffany's hometown in Kentucky. They were nice enough. We talked about the weather and the salmon being a little dry. I watched my son dance with his new wife. Watched him dance with Patricia. Watched him dance with Tiffany's grandmother, who was 83 and needed a walker to get to her chair. He never came to my table. I told myself he was busy, told myself it was his wedding day, and there were 100 people demanding his attention. But he'd found time to dance with Tiffany's second cousin. When I got home to my rental duplex on Cherry Street, I made chamomile tea and sat at my kitchen table with the documents Walter Brennan had given me 6 months ago. My husband Robert had died 3 years earlier. Massive heart attack at 65, 3 weeks before his retirement party from Owens Corning. We'd been married 40 years. Robert had been careful with money, obsessively careful. He'd invested in tech stocks in the 90s, bought rental properties when Toledo's market crashed in 2008, and sold them at exactly the right time. I'd known we were comfortable. I'd had no idea we were worth $80 million. Walter had explained it all in his office last March. Trusts, investment accounts, real estate holdings scattered across 3 states. Robert had kept it quiet because he'd grown up poor and never wanted our son to become one of those trust fund kids who never worked for anything. He wanted Brandon to build his own life first, Walter had said. Make his own way. Then, when the time was right, you'd tell him. Give him security without robbing him of ambition. I'd planned to tell Brandon at the wedding. Pull him aside during a quiet moment and explain that his father had left us more than comfortable, that he'd never have to worry about his kids' college funds or retirement or any of it, that he came from a man who'd built something remarkable through patience and smart choices. But something had stopped me the night before the ceremony. Brandon had taken me to dinner at Focaccia's, just the 2 of us, and I'd almost told him then. I had the words ready. But Tiffany had called 3 times during our meal. The 3rd time, Brandon had excused himself and spent 15 minutes outside on the phone with her. When he came back, he'd said, "Sorry, Mom, wedding stuff. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. My wedding to Robert had cost $800 and we'd held it in my parents' backyard. So I'd kept quiet. Told myself I'd wait until after the honeymoon, when things settled down, when I could have a real conversation with my son about his father's legacy. Now, at 11:30 on a Saturday night, sitting alone in my kitchen with the taste of dry salmon still in my mouth, I was grateful I'd waited. I pulled out the folder Walter had marked Estate Documents, Confidential, and flipped through the pages. Most of it was legal language I barely understood, but I could read the numbers clearly enough. $80,247,000 as of the last quarterly statement. My phone buzzed, a text from Brandon. "Thanks for coming today, Mom. It meant a lot. Heading to the airport now. I'll call you when we get to Bali." I typed back, "Have a wonderful time. I love you." He sent a heart emoji and nothing else. I was putting the documents back in the folder when I noticed a paper I hadn't seen before. It must have been stuck to the back of one of the trust statements. I pulled it free and smoothed it flat on the table. It was a photocopy of the marriage license application. Brandon and Tiffany's names, their addresses, their parents' names. Standard information. But clipped to it was another document, something that looked official with a law firm's letterhead I didn't recognize. Brennan and Associates wasn't Walter's firm. His practice was called Brennan Legal Services. I squinted at the small print. It was a prenuptial agreement summary. Not the full document, just a cover sheet with bullet points outlining the terms. I'd known Brandon and Tiffany had signed a prenup. He'd mentioned it casually, said it was Tiffany's idea, that she wanted to make sure everything was fair and clear from the start. I scanned the bullet points. Division of assets in case of divorce. Pretty standard. Tiffany kept her personal accounts. Brandon kept his. Any jointly acquired property would be split. Then I reached the bottom section. Additional considerations and disclosures. My chest tightened. Husband acknowledges wife's awareness of expected significant maternal inheritance, estimated value 75-year plus, to be received upon disclosure at date of husband's choosing. Parties agree this inheritance shall be considered separate property of husband, unless explicitly transferred to joint ownership. I read it 3 times. Brandon had told Tiffany about the money, before the wedding, before I'd said a word to anyone except Walter. My son had known I was planning to tell him. And he'd told his fiancée instead of asking me about it first. And somehow, they'd gotten the amount almost exactly right. I sat very still, listening to the refrigerator hum and the upstairs neighbor's television playing too loud. Outside, a car drove past with bass thumping so hard it rattled my windows. How did Brandon know? How did Tiffany know? And why did their prenup read like they were already counting money that nobody had promised them? I picked up my phone and pulled up Walter's contact information. Then I set it back down. It was almost midnight on a Saturday. This could wait until Monday morning. But my hands were shaking as I made a fresh cup of tea, and I knew I wouldn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep that night. At 6:47 a.m., I was already dressed and sitting at my kitchen table with my second cup of coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. Toledo area code. Mrs. Ellison? This is Jennifer from Dr. Patel's office. We're calling to confirm your appointment for Tuesday at 2:15. I didn't have an appointment with Dr. Patel. I hadn't seen a doctor in 8 months since my annual physical. I think there's been a mistake, I said. I didn't schedule anything. A pause. The sound of keyboard typing. I show here that Tiffany Ellison called last Wednesday to book a consultation for you. She said you'd been having some memory issues and wanted to get checked out. My coffee went cold in my hands. I'm not having memory issues, I said carefully, and I didn't authorize anyone to make appointments for me. Oh, another pause. Well, should I cancel it then? Yes, and please note in my file that only I can schedule my own appointments. No one else. I hung up and stared at my phone. Tiffany had called a doctor's office and made an appointment for me, claiming I had memory problems. 5 days before her wedding. The phone rang again immediately. This time I recognized the number. Walter Brennan. Donna, I'm glad I caught you. His voice sounded strained. Are you free this morning? I need to talk to you about something. In person. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Walter's office on Madison Avenue. He looked older than I remembered. He'd handled Robert's estate 3 years ago, and I'd seen him maybe twice since then for paperwork signatures. Now he had deep circles under his eyes, and his hands shook slightly as he poured coffee from a small pot on his credenza. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. He sat down heavily in his chair. Did you give Brandon access to your financial documents? Did you show him the estate portfolio? No. I was going to tell him about it at the wedding, but I never got the chance. Why? Walter pulled out a folder from his desk drawer. Because someone accessed your files. Not the physical copies, the digital ones. We keep everything encrypted and password protected on our server. On Wednesday morning, someone logged into the client portal using your credentials and downloaded copies of all your estate documents. Wednesday. The day before the wedding rehearsal. I don't even know what credentials are, I said. I've never logged into anything online for your office. That's what I was afraid of. He pushed a printed page across the desk. This is the IP address log. The access came from a computer in Perrysburg. Tiffany lived in Perrysburg. So did her mother, Patricia. Walter, how would they get my password? He looked uncomfortable. That's the thing. They didn't need to guess it. Someone called our office 2 weeks ago claiming to be you. Said you'd forgotten your login information and needed it reset. My assistant Julie walked them through the whole process. She thought she was being helpful. I thought about Julie. Sweet girl, maybe 25, always smiling when I came in for appointments. She wouldn't have known to be suspicious. What exactly did they download? Everything. Trust documents, investment statements, property deeds, the works. They know exactly what you're worth, Donna. Down to the last dollar. The prenup summary made sense now. 75 CMA plus wasn't a guess. It was rounded down from $80,000 to $247,000. There's more. Walter pulled out another document. This came to my office yesterday, certified mail, delivered Saturday morning before the wedding. It was a letter on expensive cream-colored stationery. The letterhead read, Reese and Daughters Legal Consulting. I scanned the text. Legal jargon mostly, but the meaning was clear enough. Tiffany's mother, Patricia, was requesting a formal inquiry into my mental competency, citing concerns about age-related cognitive decline and vulnerability to financial exploitation. She was suggesting that Brandon should be granted power of attorney for his mother's protection. This is insane, I said. I'm 68 years old. I pay my bills on time, I drive, I volunteer at the library twice a week. There's nothing wrong with my mind. I know that. But this is a strategy, Donna. They're building a paper trail. The doctor's appointment, this letter, probably other things we don't know about yet. They're creating documentation that could be used to argue you're not capable of managing your own affairs. My hands started shaking again. I set them flat on Walter's desk to make them stop. Why would Brandon do this to me? Walter's face softened. I don't think Brandon knows the full scope of what's happening. I think Tiffany is orchestrating this, and your son is either being manipulated or choosing not to see what's right in front of him. I thought about the wedding, about sitting at table 9, about Brandon's text message with the heart emoji and nothing else. About 3 weeks in Bali, while his mother sat alone in a rental duplex trying to understand how her life had turned into this. What do I do? First, we change all your passwords, everything. We move your accounts to a different bank if we need to. We make sure no one can touch anything without your explicit written consent. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Second, we document everything. Every phone call, every conversation, every weird thing that happens. If this goes to court, we'll need evidence. Court? I hope it doesn't come to that. But Donna, you need to understand what we're dealing with here. If they can get you declared incompetent, or if they can pressure you into signing over power of attorney, they'll have access to everything. And based on what I'm seeing, that's exactly what they're trying to do. I left Walter's office at 10:30 with a folder full of new documents and a sick feeling in my stomach. I'd parked in the garage 2 blocks away. The morning was gray and cold, typical November in Toledo. I walked with my head down, watching my shoes on the concrete. When I got to my car, there was a note under the windshield wiper, just a piece of paper, folded in half, no envelope. I looked around the garage, empty except for a few scattered vehicles. No one in sight. I unfolded it. The handwriting was feminine, neat cursive in blue ink. Donna, we should talk. Mother to mother. There are things Brandon doesn't understand about family finances, and I'd hate for there to be any confusion going forward. Perhaps coffee this week. I know a lovely place on River Road. Patricia. I stood there holding the note, feeling the weight of perfume that had been sprayed on the paper. Chanel No. 5. The same perfume Robert's secretary used to wear. The same perfume that had made me sneeze at the wedding reception when Patricia hugged me and said, "Welcome to the family." I got in my car and locked the doors. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Donna. It's Tiffany. Hope you're having a good weekend. Brandon and I are at the airport waiting for our flight. Just wanted to let you know we've been talking, and we think it would be really nice if you came to stay with us when we get back from the honeymoon. We have that big house, plenty of room, and we'd love to have you closer. Think about it. We can help you pack up your apartment. Would be so much easier than living alone. XOXO. I read the message 3 times. They wanted me to move in with them. Into their house, under their roof, under their control. I thought about the doctor's appointment I'd never made, about the competency inquiry, about Patricia's note and her perfume, and her lovely place on River Road, where we could talk mother to mother about things Brandon didn't understand. I started my car and drove home, checking my rearview mirror every 30 seconds to make sure no one was following me. When I got back to my duplex, I made myself lunch, grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup, the same thing I'd been making for 40 years. I ate it slowly at my kitchen table, staring at the stack of documents Walter had given me. Then I did something I hadn't done since Robert died. I called my cousin Margaret in Cleveland. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. The last time was at Robert's funeral when she'd held my hand during the service and told me I could call any time. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Donna? Is everything okay?" "No," I said. "I don't think it is, and I need help." Margaret drove down from Cleveland the next morning. She pulled up in front of my duplex at 9:15 in a silver Honda Civic that had seen better days. I watched from my living room window as she got out, looked up at my building, and shook her head. When I opened the door, she hugged me hard enough to hurt. "Let me see everything," she said. We sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours. I showed her the prenup summary, Walter's documents, the competency inquiry letter, Patricia's note, the text from Tiffany. Margaret read each page twice, making notes on a legal pad she'd brought with her. "You know what this is?" She tapped the competency letter. "This is a setup. They're creating a narrative. Confused old woman, living alone, vulnerable to scams. They establish a pattern of concern, get a doctor to confirm cognitive issues, then swoop in as the caring family members who just want to protect you. But I'm not confused. I know that. You know that. But imagine you're a judge looking at paperwork. Here's a doctor's appointment someone made because you were forgetting things. Here's a concerned daughter-in-law worried about you living alone. Here's a lawyer's letter expressing concern about financial exploitation. It builds a picture. I thought about the picture they were painting. A widow, living in a cheap rental, no family nearby, getting older. It was almost accurate except for the part where I was incompetent. What do I do? First, you stop being alone. That's what they're counting on. No witnesses, no support system, just you making decisions they can later claim were evidence of decline. She pulled out her phone. "I'm going to give you the number of a lawyer I know in Toledo. Not Walter. Someone independent who doesn't have any connection to your family or your husband's estate. You need your own advocate. Walter has been with us for 40 years. And someone accessed your files through his office. I'm not saying he's involved, but his security failed you. You need someone who's protecting only your interests, not managing a relationship they've had for decades." She wasn't wrong. Margaret stayed until Wednesday afternoon. We changed all my passwords, set up 2-factor authentication on everything, and moved my primary checking account to a credit union across town. She helped me install a Ring doorbell camera and showed me how to check the footage from my phone. "Document everything," she said before she left. "Every call, every text, every weird thing that happens. Dates, times, what was said. If this goes sideways, you'll need proof." After she drove away, my duplex felt emptier than it had before. I made dinner, baked chicken and green beans. I ate half and put the rest in the refrigerator. I tried to watch television but couldn't focus. Every car that drove past made me look up at the window. At 8:30, my phone rang. Brandon. "Hey, Mom, we're back from Bali. It was incredible. You would have loved it." I closed my eyes. His voice sounded normal. Happy even. Like nothing was wrong. "I'm glad you had a good time. Listen, Tiffany mentioned she texted you about maybe coming to stay with us for a while. We've been talking about it, and we really think it would be great. The house is huge. You'd have your own wing, practically. We could see each other every day. Brandon." I'm fine where I am. A pause. Mom, you're living in a rental. You're alone. Don't you want to be around family? I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him how he knew about the money, why he'd told Tiffany, why he hadn't danced with me at his wedding. But Margaret's advice echoed in my head. Document everything. Stay calm. Don't reveal what you know. I appreciate the offer, but I like my independence. Tiffany's worried about you. She said she called to make you a doctor's appointment and you canceled it. Are you feeling okay? So Tiffany had told him her version. The concerned daughter-in-law trying to help, the stubborn mother-in-law refusing care. I feel fine. I don't need a doctor. Mom, his voice shifted, harder now. You're not getting any younger. Maybe you don't see it, but we do. Little things. Forgetting conversations, repeating yourself. It's normal at your age, but it's something we should keep an eye on. My hands went cold. I don't forget conversations. I don't repeat myself. You told me the same story about Mrs. Henderson's cat 3 times last month. I had no idea what he was talking about. I barely knew Mrs. Henderson. She lived 2 doors down, and we'd said hello maybe twice. Brandon, that didn't happen. See? That's exactly what I'm talking about. You don't even remember. He sighed. Look, we're not trying to upset you. We love you. We want to make sure you're taken care of. Just think about the moving in thing, okay? We can help you pack. Make it easy. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for 20 minutes. Then I went to the hall closet and pulled down a box from the top shelf. Inside were photo albums from the past 40 years. I found what I was looking for in the 3rd album. Pictures from 1983, when Brandon was a baby. There was one photo in particular. Robert and me on our apartment steps. Brandon in my arms, maybe 6 months old. Robert was making a silly face to get Brandon to laugh. I was wearing a yellow dress I'd sewn myself because we couldn't afford to buy clothes. We looked young and broke and happy. I'd given up a teaching career to stay home with Brandon. Robert worked double shifts at the glass factory. We ate spaghetti 4 nights a week and considered pizza a luxury. I'd made Brandon's baby food from scratch, sewn his clothes, cut his hair in our kitchen. When he was 5 and wanted karate lessons, I'd cleaned houses on weekends to pay for them. Every decision we'd made had been for him, and now he was on the phone telling me I was forgetting conversations I'd never had, suggesting I move in with them so they could keep an eye on me. I closed the album and put it back in the box. The next morning, I called the lawyer Margaret had recommended. His name was David Chen, and he had an office downtown near the courthouse. I drove there Thursday afternoon, parked in a garage that charged $8 for 2 hours, and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. David was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with glasses and a firm handshake. Margaret filled me in on the basics, he said after I'd sat down. But I want to hear everything from you. Start from the beginning. I told him about Robert's death, about Walter revealing the estate, about planning to tell Brandon at the wedding. I told him about the prenup summary, the hacked files, the competency letter, all of it. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, stopping me occasionally to ask questions. When I finished, he set his pen down. Mrs. Ellison, you're dealing with what we call undue influence and potential elder abuse. The good news is you caught it early and you're clearly competent. The bad news is these situations often get worse before they get better. What's the worst case scenario? Worst case? They escalate. More pressure to move in with them. Maybe they find a doctor willing to say you're declining. They could petition for guardianship, claim you're a danger to yourself. It's a long shot if you fight it, but it's expensive and stressful and it destroys families. It's already destroyed, I said quietly. He nodded. Then let's make sure you're protected. We're going to do several things. First, I'm going to draft a formal letter to Tiffany and her mother, putting them on notice that any further contact regarding your health or finances will be considered harassment. Second, we're going to get you a full cognitive evaluation from an independent doctor. Not because I think you need it, but because we want documentation proving you're competent. Takes their ammunition away. How much is this going to cost? My retainer is $5,000. The evaluation will be another $800. After that, we bill hourly, but I'll keep you informed every step of the way. I thought about the $80 million sitting in accounts Robert had carefully built over 40 years. I thought about the $500 check I'd given Brandon that had taken me 2 months to save. I thought about grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup and a rental duplex with thin walls. Okay, I said, let's do it. I wrote the check right there in his office. When I got home, there was a package on my doorstep. No return address, just my name written in that same feminine cursive from Patricia's note. Inside was a book. The 36-Hour Day, a family guide to caring for people who have Alzheimer disease. No note, no explanation, just the book and the message it carried. I took a picture of it with my phone, making sure to capture the date and timestamp. Then I texted the photo to David Chen with a single word, evidence. His response came immediately. Save everything. You're doing great. But I didn't feel great. I felt tired and small and very alone. I made dinner again, grilled cheese and soup. Same as always. I ate it slowly, and when I was done, I washed my dishes and put them away. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and did something I hadn't done since high school. I started keeping a journal. The cognitive evaluation happened on a Tuesday morning at St. Vincent Medical Center. Dr. Sarah Brenner was in her 50s, calm and professional. She spent 2 hours asking me questions, having me draw clocks and remember word lists and solve simple math problems. Mrs. Ellison, your cognitive function is completely normal, she said at the end. Actually, it's above average for your age group. Your memory is sharp, your reasoning is sound, and you show no signs of decline whatsoever. I felt something loosen in my chest. Can you put that in writing? I'll have a full report ready by Friday. Your lawyer requested copies for your file. When I left the hospital, I sat in my car for 10 minutes just breathing. They couldn't use confusion as an excuse anymore. I had documentation, proof. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Mom, can you come over for dinner Thursday? Tiffany wants to cook for you. 699. I stared at the message. After 3 weeks of pressure and manipulation, now they wanted to have dinner. Just a nice family meal. Nothing suspicious at all. I texted back, I'll be there. David Chen had been clear about this. Don't avoid them. Don't act paranoid. Document everything, stay calm, and let them make mistakes. They'll push harder if they think you're onto them, he'd said. But if you act normal, they might reveal more than they intend to. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Thursday dinner, about sitting at their table, eating food Tiffany prepared, pretending everything was fine. I got up at 2 a.m. and made tea. While the water boiled, I noticed something on my kitchen counter. The folder Walter had given me weeks ago. I'd been through it a dozen times, but something was bothering me. I pulled out the prenup summary again and looked at the law firm letterhead, Brennan and Associates. Walter's firm was Brennan Legal Services. Same last name, but different practice. I opened my laptop and searched for Brennan and Associates, Toledo, Ohio. Nothing came up. No website, no address, no phone number. I tried Brennan and Associates Law Firm, Ohio. Still nothing. I expanded the search to all of Ohio, then neighboring states. Not a single result. The law firm on the prenup summary didn't exist. My hands started shaking. I took a photo of the letterhead and emailed it to David Chen with a note. Can you check if this firm is real? His response came at 7:30 a.m. Already on it. This is huge. Call me when you wake up. I called immediately. That letterhead is fake, David said. I ran it through every database we have. There's no firm called Brennan and Associates registered anywhere in Ohio. Someone created a fake document. Why would they need a fake prenup summary? Because the real prenup probably doesn't mention your inheritance at all. Think about it. Brandon told Tiffany about the money, but he couldn't put it in the actual legal prenup without your knowledge and consent. So someone made a fake summary to show that they'd discussed it, to make it look legitimate. Who would do that? My guess? Tiffany or her mother. They needed proof that Brandon had disclosed the inheritance, something they could point to later if questions came up. But they couldn't file it with the actual prenup because it would have required your signature as a party to the estate. I thought about Patricia and her perfume and her note about talking mother to mother. What do I do with this? Nothing yet. We save it. This is evidence of fraud, Donna. When the time comes, This could be very valuable. Thursday arrived too quickly. I drove to Brandon's house in Sylvania at 5:45, giving myself time to sit in the driveway and prepare. The house was beautiful. A 2-story colonial with black shutters and a perfectly maintained lawn. Brandon had bought it 2 years ago for $385,000. I'd asked him how he afforded it on a car sales manager salary, and he'd said he'd been saving. Now I wondered how much of that savings had been built on the assumption of my money. Tiffany answered the door wearing an apron and a smile. "Donna, come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready." The house smelled like roasted chicken and herbs. Everything was spotless. Pottery barn furniture, fresh flowers on the entry table, professional family photos on the walls, photos from the wedding, including several where I'd been cropped out. Brandon came down the stairs. "Hey, Mom. Glad you could make it." He hugged me, and for a second, he was just my son again. Just Brandon, who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and tell me they were beautiful. Then Tiffany appeared at his elbow, and the moment passed. We ate in the dining room. The table could seat 10, but it was just the 3 of us. Tiffany had made chicken, roasted vegetables, and some kind of quinoa salad. Everything tasted like it came from a cooking show. "So, Mom," Brandon said halfway through the meal, "we've been thinking about your situation." "My situation? Living alone in that duplex. It's not ideal. You're paying rent when you could be building equity. And if something happened, if you fell or got sick, no one would know. I have my phone. I have neighbors." "Mrs. Henderson?" Tiffany said softly. "Brandon mentioned she's concerned about you, too. She said you've seemed confused lately." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "Mrs. Henderson barely knows me. She said you knocked on her door at 11 p.m. last Tuesday asking if she'd seen your cat. But, Mom, you don't have a cat." This was insane. I'd never knocked on Mrs. Henderson's door at any hour, and I definitely hadn't asked about a non-existent cat. "That didn't happen," I said carefully. Brandon and Tiffany exchanged a look. The kind of look that said, "See what we're dealing with." "It's okay, Mom," Brandon said. "We're not judging you. This is why we want you here with us, so we can help." I set my fork down. My appetite was gone. "We actually talked to Walter about it," Tiffany added. "About maybe setting up some kind of arrangement where Brandon could help manage your finances, just to take the pressure off you. You wouldn't have to worry about bills or investments or any of that." There it was, the real reason for dinner. "Walter and I have already discussed my finances," I said. "Everything is handled. But wouldn't it be easier if Brandon had power of attorney? Just for financial things. You'd still make all the decisions, but he could help execute them. Make sure nothing falls through the cracks." I looked at my son. He was nodding along, like this made perfect sense. "I had a cognitive evaluation done on Tuesday," I said. "Dr. Brenner at St. Vincent. She said my mental function is completely normal. Above average, actually. So I don't think I need help managing my own affairs." The room went very quiet. "You had an evaluation?" Brandon's voice was tight. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because my health is my business." Tiffany's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. "Of course it is. We just want what's best for you. I appreciate that, but I'm fine." The rest of dinner was strained. We talked about the weather and Brandon's job and nothing that mattered. When dessert came, I said I was full. I left at 8:00, citing an early morning at the library. Brandon walked me to my car. "Mom, are you mad at us?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become someone I didn't recognize? "No, honey. I'm just tired. We really do think you should move in with us. At least think about it?" "I'll think about it." I drove home with my hands tight on the steering wheel. When I got back to my duplex, I immediately checked the Ring doorbell footage from the past week. Every day, every hour, I had never knocked on Mrs. Henderson's door. Not at 11 p.m. Not ever. They were making things up, creating incidents that never happened, building a case that I was losing my mind. I called David Chen and left a voicemail describing the entire dinner conversation. Then I did something else, something I'd been thinking about since Margaret's visit. I called a private investigator. His name was Ron Kowalski, and Margaret had given me his number just in case. He had an office in Oregon, a suburb west of Toledo, and he agreed to meet me the next morning. I need to know who these people really are, I told him. Tiffany and her mother Patricia, where they came from, what they've done before, everything. Ron was in his 60s, ex-cop, with tired eyes and a notepad that had seen better days. Background checks run about $1,500 per person, he said. More if I find something that requires deeper digging. You sure you want to know? I'm sure. Give me a week. I wrote another check. My savings account was getting lighter, but I didn't care. I needed answers more than I needed money. When I got home, there was another package on my doorstep. This time, it was a medical alert bracelet, the kind with the button you press if you fall and can't get up. No note. Same handwriting on the label. I took a picture and added it to my evidence folder. Then I put the bracelet in a drawer and tried not to think about how much worse this was going to get. Ron Kowalski called me 6 days later. It was Thursday afternoon, and I was at the library shelving books in the children's section. Mrs. Ellison, we need to meet. Today, if possible. I found something. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. I met him at a diner on Reynolds Road at 3 Sow. He was already in a booth when I arrived, a manila folder on the table in front of him. Before I show you this, I need to ask, how well do you know Walter Brennan? My stomach dropped. He was my husband's lawyer for 40 years. Why? Ron opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. It showed Walter and a younger woman at what looked like a restaurant. They were holding hands across the table. That's Patricia Reese, Tiffany's mother. I stared at the photo. When was this taken? 2 years ago. They've been seeing each other on and off since 2022. Quietly, very quietly. The room tilted slightly. Walter. Walter who'd handled Robert's estate. Walter who'd had my files on his computer. Walter who'd claimed someone hacked his system. There's more. Ron pulled out another document. Patricia Reese, born Patricia Ann Hoffman in Lexington, Kentucky, 1972. Married 3 times. First marriage ended in divorce. Husband claimed she'd stolen $40,000 from his business account. No charges filed. Second marriage, same story. Cleaned out a joint account and disappeared. Third husband died in 2019. Car accident. She inherited $200,000 from his life insurance. And Tiffany? Tiffany Marie Reese, 29 years old, born in Lexington. Worked as a paralegal for 6 months at a firm in Cincinnati. Fired for accessing confidential client files. No law degree despite what she might have told your son. She's moved 4 times in the past 5 years. Always to a new city. Always with a new boyfriend. Brandon is number 5 that I can confirm. I thought about the wedding. About Tiffany's smile and her ivory lace dress and the way she'd appeared at Brandon's elbow every time I tried to talk to him. She's done this before. At least twice that I can prove. Both times with men who had money. Both relationships ended within a year, usually after she'd gotten what she wanted. The last guy, a widower in Dayton, filed a police report claiming she'd forged his signature on a home equity loan. She left town before they could investigate. Does Brandon know any of this? Ron shook his head. I doubt it. She's good at what she does. New identity, new story. Just enough truth mixed in to be believable. I sat there trying to process it all. My son had married a con artist, and Walter, the man Robert had trusted with everything, was sleeping with her mother. There's one more thing. Ron pulled out a final document. I tracked down Walter's financial records. Public stuff, mostly. Property records, court filings. He's broke, Donna. His practice is barely surviving. He's got a mortgage he can't pay, and there's a lien on his office building for $180,000 in unpaid taxes. So when Patricia came to him, he saw a way out. Your $80 million could solve all his problems. If he helps them get access to your money, I'm guessing they promised him a cut. I thought about Walter's shaking hands, the circles under his eyes, the way he'd seemed older when I saw him. What do? You have 2 options. Go to the police with what I found or confront them directly. If you go to the police, it'll take time. Investigations, paperwork, maybe charges if we're lucky. If you confront them, you control the narrative and risk them destroying evidence. That's the gamble, but you've got something they don't know you have. Proof documentation, and the element of surprise. I drove home with Ron's folder on my passenger seat. When I got there, I called David Chen and told him everything. "I need to talk to Brandon," I said. "Without Tiffany there, just him and me. Are you sure that's wise? He's my son. He deserves to know the truth before this goes any further." David was quiet for a moment. "Okay, but I'm coming with you, as your lawyer. This is a legal matter now, and you need a witness to whatever happens." I texted Brandon, "Can you meet me tomorrow for lunch? Just you. It's important." His response came 10 minutes later. "Is everything okay? We need to talk. Please." "Okay. Giovanni's at noon?" Giovanni's was the Italian place where Robert used to take me for anniversaries. The food was mediocre, but the booths were private. I arrived 15 minutes early. David met me in the parking lot, and we went in together. Brandon was already there, sitting in a back booth. His face went confused when he saw David with me. "Mom? What's going on?" "Brandon, this is David Chen. He's my attorney." "Your attorney? Why do you need an attorney?" I slid into the booth across from him. David sat next to me. I put Ron's folder on the table. "Because I need you to understand what's happening, and I need a witness to this conversation." Brandon's face shifted from confused to defensive. "Is this about the power of attorney thing?" "Mom, we were just trying to help." "Brandon, when did you tell Tiffany about your father's money?" He blinked. "What? The inheritance, the $80 million, when did you tell her?" His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about." I opened the folder and pulled out the fake prenup summary. "This mentions a $75 million maternal inheritance. It's dated 2 weeks before your wedding. So either you told her, or someone else did." "I didn't tell her anything. I didn't even know about the money until..." He stopped. "Until when?" "Until Walter called me 6 months ago. He said you were getting older and you'd asked him to brief me on Dad's estate. He said you wanted me to know so I could help take care of you." The booth felt like it was shrinking. "Brandon, I never asked Walter to do that. I was planning to tell you myself. At your wedding, that's not. He said you were having memory issues, that you'd forget you'd already told him to tell me." I pulled out Dr. Brenner's evaluation and slid it across the table. "I had a cognitive assessment done last week. I'm completely fine. There are no memory issues. There never were." Brandon picked up the paper and read it. His hands started shaking. "Walter lied to you," I said quietly, "and I need you to understand why." But I spent the next 20 minutes showing him everything. Ron's background check on Tiffany and Patricia, the photographs of Walter and Patricia together, the evidence of Tiffany's past cons, the fake law firm letterhead, the fabricated stories about me knocking on doors and forgetting conversations. Brandon sat there, silent, his face getting paler with each page. "She said her father died when she was 12, he whispered finally. "She said her mom raised her alone. She said she'd worked so hard to become a paralegal because she wanted to help people. None of it was true. The house. She insisted we buy the house. She said it was a good investment, that we could afford it. She handled all the paperwork, all the financing. I just signed where she told me to sign." David leaned forward. "Brandon, I need to ask you something. Did you sign anything else? Any documents Tiffany gave you? Anything about your mother or her finances?" Brandon's face crumpled. "Oh my God. There was a document. 2 weeks ago, right before we left for Bali. She said it was a living will thing. She said it was to protect Mom in case anything happened. That it would give me the authority to make medical decisions if she couldn't." "Do you have a copy?" "She said she'd file it with her lawyer and get me copies later." David and I looked at each other. A living will with medical power of attorney could be the first step to getting full guardianship. "Brandon," I said gently, "did you ever question any of this? Did you ever think something was wrong?" He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "She was so good to me, Mom. She made me feel like I mattered, like I was special. And she said she loved you. She said she wanted to help take care of you because you'd been alone for so long and you deserved family. She wanted access to my money. I know that now, but I didn't then. I just thought I'd finally found someone who loved me, someone who wanted to build a life with me." His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I'm so stupid." "You're not stupid. You were manipulated by someone very good at it." "What do I do now?" David answered before I could. "You come clean Completely. You tell us everything you signed, everything you gave her access to, every conversation you remember. And then you help us stop this before it goes any further. Brandon nodded, wiping his eyes with his napkin. Okay, what do you need? First, we need that document you signed. Can you get it from her? She keeps everything in a safe in our bedroom. I know the combination. Get it tonight if you can. Make an excuse. Say you're looking for insurance papers or something. Take photos of everything in that safe and send them to my phone. David pulled out a business card. This is my cell. Text me the moment you have them. What about Tiffany? What about my marriage? I reached across the table and took my son's hand. Brandon, your marriage was never real. It was a con from the beginning, but we can protect you. We can make sure she doesn't take anything else from you or from me. The house, everything we have, it's all tangled together. We'll figure it out. But right now, I need to know. Are you with me or are you with her? Brandon looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. I'm with you, Mom. I'm so sorry. I'm with you. Brandon sent the photos at 2:47 a.m. 17 images of documents from Tiffany's safe. David Chen called me at 7 a.m. after reviewing them all. This is worse than we thought. She has forged power of attorney papers with your signature. She has a fake will naming Brandon as executor with Tiffany as co-executor. And there's a life insurance policy on you for $500,000 that you never signed. My coffee went cold on the counter. How is that even possible? It's not. It's all fraud. But if something happened to you before we caught it, these documents would have given them access to everything while the estate was in probate. They'd have months to drain accounts before anyone noticed. What do? We end this. Today. I've already contacted the police and the Ohio Bar Association. We have enough evidence for criminal charges. Fraud, forgery, attempted elder exploitation. Walter will lose his license. Tiffany and Patricia will face felony charges. What about Brandon? He's a victim. He cooperated immediately once he knew the truth. The prosecutor will see that. The meeting happened at David's office at 2 p.m. David had arranged everything. A detective from Toledo PD, a representative from the Bar Association, and a representative from the Ohio Attorney General's office. We spent 3 hours going through every document, every piece of evidence Ron had collected, every lie Tiffany and Patricia had told. By 5 p.m., there were warrants. The police arrested Walter at his office at 5:45. They arrested Patricia at her apartment in Perrysburg at 6:20. Tiffany was harder to find. She'd left Brandon's house around noon, according to Brandon, saying she was going shopping. She didn't come back. They found her at 9:30 p.m. at the Greyhound station downtown with a suitcase and $8,000 cash. She'd cleaned out the joint account she shared with Brandon that morning. I didn't go to any of the arrests. I stayed home and made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup. I ate it slowly and washed my dishes and tried to process the fact that it was over. Brandon called at 10:15. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, honey. Are you? I don't know. The house feels empty. Everything feels empty. His voice cracked. I keep thinking about all the things she said, all the ways she made me doubt you. How did I not see it? She was a professional, Brandon. This is what she does. I should have trusted you. I should have known. You know now. That's what matters. There was a long silence. Then, can I come over? I don't want to be alone tonight. Of course. He arrived 20 minutes later with a duffel bag and red eyes. I made up the spare bedroom with clean sheets while he sat at my kitchen table staring at nothing. She took the wedding rings, he said. Everything from the safe except the documents. All Mom's jewelry, she said, was family heirlooms. The watch Dad gave me. All of it. We'll get some of it back. The police recovered the cash. I don't care about the money. I just feel so stupid. I sat down across from him. You fell in love with someone who lied about who they were. That's not stupid. That's human. I chose her over you. For a little while. But you came back. And Brandon, that took courage. It would have been easier to keep believing the lies. He looked at me with tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I reached across the table and took his hand. I know, and I forgive you. The criminal cases took 8 months. Walter pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy in exchange for a reduced sentence. He got 3 years and lost his law license. Patricia fought the charges, but lost. The jury took 4 hours to convict her on all counts. She got 7 years. Tiffany was the interesting one. Her lawyer argued she was a victim of Patricia's manipulation, that she'd been raised by a con artist and didn't know any other way to live. The prosecutor wasn't buying it. They had evidence of 4 previous cons, including the one in Dayton where she'd forged a home equity loan. She pleaded guilty 3 days before trial. 5 years, with the possibility of parole after 3 if she stayed clean. In victim impact statements, David helped me write mine. I kept it short. Just the facts. The isolation, the fear, the systematic attempt to steal everything my husband had built. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. Brandon's statement was harder to hear. He talked about the shame of realizing he'd been manipulated, the guilt of doubting his own mother, the fear of what might have happened if I hadn't been strong enough to fight back. The judge looked at him for a long moment before sentencing Tiffany. "Mr. Ellison, you're not the villain here. You're another victim. Remember that." Brandon nodded, but I knew he didn't quite believe it yet. The divorce was finalized 6 months after the arrest. Tiffany signed the papers from county jail. Brandon got the house back. Turns out the down payment had come from a home equity loan Tiffany had taken out against her mother's apartment, forging Patricia's signature. The bank didn't care about the criminal case. They wanted their money. Brandon had to sell. The house went for $375,000, barely enough to cover the mortgage and the equity loan. He moved into a small apartment in Oregon, a 2-bedroom place for $950 a month. I helped him move in. Nothing fancy, but it was his. Clean slate. "I don't need much," he said, looking around the empty living room. Maybe that's the lesson. All those things Tiffany wanted, the big house, the expensive furniture, none of it mattered. Your dad always said the same thing. I waited until everything settled. Until the criminal cases were done, the divorce finalized, the house sold. Until Brandon had been in therapy for 6 months and could talk about what happened without falling apart. Then I told him about the money. We were having dinner at Giovanni's, same booth where I'd shown him the truth about Tiffany. This time it was just us. No lawyers, no crisis. Just a mother and son eating mediocre Italian food. "Brandon, I need to tell you something. About your father." I explained everything. The investments, the properties, the careful planning. The $80 million that Robert had built over 40 years. The inheritance Brandon had always been meant to have, just not yet. "I was going to tell you at your wedding," I said, but something stopped me. Thank God it did. Brandon stared at me. $80 million. Your father wanted you to build your own life first. To know you could stand on your own, and you have. You survived something that would have destroyed a lot of people, and you came through it stronger. Mom, I don't need the money. I don't want it. Not after everything. I know you don't need it, but it's yours anyway. It's your father's legacy. I pulled out documents David had prepared. I've set up trust funds for your children, $5 million each, accessible when they turn 25, with conditions about education and character. You'll get quarterly reports, but no access until they're old enough to make their own decisions. I don't have children. You will someday, when you find someone real, someone honest, and your kids will have security their grandmother and grandfather built for them. What about you? I bought a house, small place, 3 bedrooms, in Maumee, $320,000. It's close to your apartment. 10 minutes if traffic's light. You didn't have to move closer to me. I wanted to. I spent too long watching you from a distance. I'm done with that. The rest of the money? Some of it goes to making sure you're comfortable. Not rich, Brandon. Comfortable. I'll help with your rent until you get back on your feet. I'll make sure you have a reliable car, health insurance, the basics. But you're 42 years old. You don't need luxury. You need stability. He nodded slowly. And the rest? The rest is mine. Your father left it for me to manage and use as I see fit. Some of it will go to causes I care about. The library, the food bank, maybe a scholarship fund at your dad's old high school. The rest I'll live on, comfortably, with enough left over to spoil my future grandchildren when they exist. What about Ethan and Lily? Brandon asked. You mentioned trust funds for my children. I smiled. Those are placeholder names in the documents. When you have real children, we'll update everything. But Brandon, I know you. You'll find someone real. You'll have a family. And when you do, they'll be taken care of. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Brandon said, I don't deserve any of this. Maybe not, but your father wanted you to have it anyway. That's what love is. It's not about deserving. It's about knowing someone will be okay after you're gone. He'd be disappointed in me for what happened with Tiffany. He'd be proud of you for having the courage to face the truth. That's harder than never making mistakes in the first place. 6 months later, I was in my new house in Maumee unpacking boxes when Brandon's car pulled into the driveway. He came in carrying 2 coffees and a bag of donuts from the place down the street. Thought you might need a break from unpacking. We sat on my new porch, the one that looked out over a small yard with 2 old oak trees. The morning was cool, early spring in Ohio. Everything starting to wake up. I've been thinking about going back to school, Brandon said. Maybe get an MBA. Start over in a different field. What field? I don't know yet. Something where I help people. Where I do something that matters. Your dad would like that. I start therapy at the VA next week. Group sessions for people who've been through financial abuse. Turns out there's a lot of us. I looked at my son. He looked older now but steadier. The wild confusion in his eyes from 8 months ago was gone. He looked like someone who'd walked through fire and learned something from it. I'm proud of you, I said. For what? For surviving. For choosing the hard truth over the comfortable lie. For being here. He smiled. Where else would I be? We sat there drinking coffee as the sun came up over Maumee. My new house was small but solid. My son was healing. My money was safe. And somewhere in Kentucky, Tiffany Reese was learning that some people can't be conned. I thought about Robert and the 40 years we'd built together. The sacrifices. The careful planning. The love that held through everything. He'd wanted to protect our son from becoming spoiled by money. In the end, his plan had worked better than he'd ever imagined. Brandon hadn't gotten the money when life was easy. He'd gotten it after he'd learned what really mattered, and that made all the difference. Mom? Brandon said. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, I said. That's what mothers do. And for the first time in a very long time, I meant it.